Have you or someone you know experienced unexplained health issues potentially linked to electronic warfare? Project Archimedes, in conjunction with law firm Disabled Rights Advocates, is leading a groundbreaking worldwide action against the United States government, focusing on the impacts of 5G, EMF, and other unexplained phenomena, including what's known as Havana Syndrome.
We're dealing with energy weapons.
Permanent brain injuries, the unexplained, serious medical harm connected to a mysterious direct energy weapon.
It was like this piercing feeling on the side of my head.
If you've suffered from symptoms like headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or other unusual health effects that you believe could be related to these technologies, we want to hear from you. We are seeking justice for those affected by these potentially harmful technologies.
Sharp, localized ear pain, dull unilateral headache, tinnitus or ringing in one ear, vertigo, visual focusing issues, disorientation, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
By joining this movement, you could help prevent future harm and potentially seek compensation for what has been endured.
We have created a global class action lawsuit. Foreign litigants would be availed to the U.S. courts to seek recovery for those who caused the damage. All roads point back to the United States.
To learn more about your rights, potential eligibility, and how to join the movement, visit projectarchimedes.org.
So we're going to sue in the United States with people from all over the planet who qualify to be a plaintiff simply on the basis that they spend an hour or more a day within 100 meters of a 5G transmitter.
Project Archimedes and attorney Todd Callender are committed to fighting for those who have been impacted.
These are the people who can't fight for themselves. They're the ones who can't hire the lawyer.
Visit projectarchimedes.org today to find out more about joining the movement.
Oh, with another episode of Truth Be Told, I'm a muted mic. I'm John Davidson, and this is the lovely and talented Todd Callender back in again today from the Bahamas. How are you today, Todd?
I'm fine. I'm rarely called lovely and often abrasive, but I'm actually really happy to be here. You kill me, man.
God loves us all.
I love it, man. Yeah, God loves us all. Thank you. Happy to be here. Folks, remember the name, Nick Noe, Nick Noe, Nick Noe. Holy smokes, you're going to love this interview because there is some explosive information coming out of this. Answering questions we all had, giving the answers we all suspected, John.
Yeah, Nick's gonna fill us in on so much stuff. He's a former U.S. Air Force veteran, worked in Air and Space Operations Center for AFRICOM, EUCOM, and STRATCOM, and he's a witness to Benghazi and more. It should be an eye-opening experience. But first...
I was going to say, I pray this leads where we all wanted to, and that is some hangings, because that is the punishment for treason. This is what we're talking about. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just telling you, I want confessions.
Yeah. How do we get them?
Well,
public ones. I want to see somebody on stage like Fraudchi standing up there and go, "Oh yeah, well I lied about everything." Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Well, maybe there's a matter of offering like pardons or immunity to the first 33% of whistleblowers that come forward, even if they were components of the thing, as long as they weren't the main orchestrators, right? Give those people pardons or immunity, and then you'll have like a clamoring effect where people try to get in that 33% before it's too late.
It doesn't take that much. I've worked in law enforcement, both in investigations and prosecution. And when you get the little guys, it's like Pac-Man. It doesn't take much, and they all start rolling. They just want to avoid jail time, much less getting hung. Anyway, look, this is going to happen. Yeah. You cannot contain the truth. And the truth is coming out right here, right now, and there's going to be a consequence for that, John, because you cannot govern without the consent of the governed, and the governed are demanding it. It's coming.
And until then, how about some headlines?
Yeah, let's do some headlines because the rest of the world is catching up. John, thank you for that. I don't know how long I've been talking about this, folks. You're probably tired of me saying OECD, OECD. That's the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development. It is the one world government while America slept. January 1, 2016, the OECD took over 183 countries and installed, you'll love this name, competent authorities over top of the heads of state. And I mean that. Your sovereignty, what you thought you had of it, is gone, vanished. Did anybody in those countries, if you're from one of those 183 countries, type in a response to this, please. Join the conversation. Did anybody ask your permission to abdicate your governance, your country, your nationality and sovereignty to an NGO? Anyone? Anyone? The answer is no. People are finally waking up. It is a tool of the owners. Nothing more than that, ladies and gentlemen. For your enslavement and for your eradication, these gangsters wrote the laws. The whole world has harmonized behind them because it's a rigged game and you are in it. I'm grateful for InfoWars because they did a nice little piece on this. It's a little bit long, but it's important. Please listen to this, and then we got a little bit more for you that ties it all together. Thanks, John.
There's this document I call the Eagle 2 document. It purports to be from the Federal Bureau of Investigation to Senator Edward Kennedy, classification top secret, written on July 7th, 1989. During the tenure of Richard Helms as director of the Central Intelligence Agency, decisions were made by the director with implied approval of the Oval Office to draft a blueprint and put into motion a plan by which the CIA could have as much funds as and when needed without the knowledge of Congress. The 5 experts picked were Edward Lansdale, who ran the CIA activities in Vietnam, William Colby, who was put in total command of the blueprint operation when enacted, George Bush, who asked to receive approval to have his top aide Richard Armitage to be brought aboard, and Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ferreira, a top CIA asset. The master plan called for the CIA to enter into the drug smuggling business in total and complete fashion. General Lansdale would handle all the distribution network and collection services within the military in Vietnam. See, this is why all the veterans came back addicted to heroin, because they were sold it by the CIA. The operation was given the name Eagle 2. Here's where it gets crazy, folks. Before the operation was really off the ground, Colby started his phase of elimination of dissidents, and he did so under the codename of the Phoenix Program. Colby became insane with his power, and before he was finished with Phoenix, over 20,000 suspects were executed, and over 2,500 U.S. citizens were accused by Colby of being collaborators, and they vanished. That was too close to all being made public, so Helms, who in the meantime had formed a totally strong relationship with Baron Philip du Daphne, who represented the real capital of the world, the Rothschild Empire, decided to stop Operation Eagle 2 and start another clandestine money-making operation and leave Japan. Baron du Daphne, by the way of information, later took complete control of the international organization, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, headquartered in Paris, France. So this is how the deep state works. This is how it was formed. This is what we mean when we talk about the intelligence community being international, it being co-opted and actually controlled by people that aren't technically in office of CIA. They're shadow controllers. If you're a guy and your wife manages all of the money, how are you going to cheat on her? How are you going to go have a nice steak dinner with your mistress if your wife's going to start asking questions about the $200 bill on the next credit card statement? What you need to do is go do a little something on the side to get some cash of your own so you can pay for your nefarious activities outside of the oversight of the money manager.
Nicely done, InfoWars. That's really important stuff. There's more to come, ladies and gentlemen, but let me tell you this. What you're looking at is 60 to 70 years ago. They've had a 60 to 70 year head start on this. It's been in place the whole time. And finally, I really, really pray people will wake up to the fact our governments are an illusion. It is an illusion of choice. It's an illusion of sovereignty. In the background, even these intelligence agencies carry around national identities, but they are all one and the same because they are all owned by the same people, the owner class. And their one world regulator is the OECD, supported by money magic printing presses. Hey, Elon, tell us about that, would you?
One of the things you told me about is what you call insane. Magic money computers at the Treasury. So tell us about it, because I never heard of that until you brought that up.
Okay, so you may think that the government computers like all talk to each other, they synchronize, They add up what funds are going somewhere, and it's, it's coherent. That the there's and that the numbers, for example, that you're presented as a senator, are actually the real numbers.
One would think.
One would think. No, they're not.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're not totally wrong, but they're probably off by 5% or 10% in some cases. So I call a magic money computer any computer which can just make money out of thin air. That's magic money.
So how does that work?
It just issues payments.
And you said there's something like 11 of these computers at Treasury that are sending out trillions in payments?
They're mostly at Treasury. Some are, but there's some at HHS, some there's one or two at State, there's some at DOD. I think we found now 14 magic money computers.
14, okay.
They just send money out of nothing.
Yeah. They send money out of nothing, exactly what we've been talking about. They print it out of thin air. So you have the central banking empire, and they print money out of thin air, and then they loan it to governments. And then the governments have their own computers that print stuff out of thin air. And then we should be surprised why there's a slush fund of 5% of $1 trillion here and $1 trillion there rolling around. How does that work exactly? I'd like to know. So I thank you, Mr. Musk and Doge, for looking into this, because we need to know. I will tell you this. How do they get away with it? Oh, that's how, because there are no consequences. Even if a federal prosecutor brings something, or a civil lawyer like myself, hey, judge, we got a problem here. Would you mind looking into this? And what we come to find is this is all coordinated. So again, we see the manipulation from far above government down into the government itself, the apparatus, the tool of the owners, and it reaches into the judiciary. We know that the last administration was owned. Biden didn't even sign his own executive orders. Who stood up and said, hey, no, you can't have a dissolution of America, as was found in the North American Area Declaration. But who stood up and said you can't do that? Well, now we know why, right? The chief judge, the chief justice, that is, was new to the bench at the time. And how did he rise to the level of being the chief justice of the Supreme Court? Well, now we know why, because he was the grand poobah. He was the guy marshaling all of the other judges in a private judicial club. And I guarantee there were other lawyers in there that weren't judges, just to make sure things went extra smooth. We've seen it before when the Democrats got together. They created a lawsuit whereby the Republicans would forever waive any polling questions. They wouldn't even be allowed in the polling questions. Sanctioned by what? A court, by a federal court. And we wonder how this happens. This is policy making in the judiciary without any insight, oversight, or otherwise by us, much less our elected representatives. If you think that we actually elect them, I certainly have my doubts. And there is one last clip I want to get to before we bring on Nick Noe, who is going to even more infuriate you based on the information he's bringing. Play this last clip about the communist government actors, the judges and the legislatures destroying America from within. If you wouldn't mind, John,
the American
play this, please.
Communist is committed to destroying your country. They fill up your country with rapists and murderers for the same reason the Soviet Union opened up the prisons, because they want you raped and murdered. They want you raped and murdered, one, because they're anti-humans, two, because rape and murder, all this angst, helps the communist. It helps his revolution. American Democrats want you raped and murdered. And American judges in those black robes, they sit there on the bench doing everything they can possibly do to ensure that you will continue to be raped and murdered. So the American communist that's doing the most damage to this country isn't the Black Lives Matter super freak with the new pair of Jordans on he didn't pay for. The American communist that's destroying the United States of America and will end this country. They sit on the bench. They have law degrees, fancy places.
I didn't think that was the end of it.
Oh, do you want me to keep going? Okay, we'll keep going.
That's fine. I was going to let it go to the end. I think there's 45 seconds in total.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one looks like it's 2 minutes. So
never mind. Let's stop there. That's good
Okay,
enough. He said
great.
what he was going to say, John. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful prelude to all of this, in so much that what Nick is going to talk about today, in addition to other things, is Benghazi. We all saw this. The guys were there, the help was on the way, and people were told to stand down, and Nick was there. He was part of this. He understood it. This is what we call primary evidence, firsthand witnesses. Nick, with that said, welcome to Truth Be Told. God bless you for what it is you're doing. I'm so excited to have you here. I don't even know where to start.
Thanks for the introduction, Todd. I guess I could start by telling everybody kind of where I worked and how I ended up in the position to see all that. So I joined the Air Force, and initially I thought I was going to be doing aerospace control and warning systems, basically controlling fighter aircraft as they attack and identifying enemies. And then, of course, command and control was in there too. I learned encryption, radio, all the different types of technologies used by Air and Space Operations Centers. And the first thing that we learned when we got there was the call tree. Basically, when the first thing everybody learns when they get there is that there's a list, and you get this sheet of paper, and you call everybody in. If something happens, like an incident like Benghazi, you call all the people in. The first person calls this person, the next person calls the other person, and it's a tree. Everybody's we've practiced it, and people could get in within less than an hour. We could have the entire staff there. But whenever my friend, he was working in the skiff at the time, his name is Joshua Salmon. I usually worked with him in night shift. And it was almost always us, because we didn't have kids, and we didn't mind it. So all the people who had families and stuff, we did it for them too. But anyway, when we were doing that, that time in particular, I had been on vacation, and I was coming back from Spain. And when you return, at least in our unit, when you return from out of country, even if you have the next day off, you still need to come in and then tell them you're alive in the country, and then you can have your next day off or whatever. So I come back in on the next day, basically as this is all taking place, and people are starting to come into work and so on.
Hang on, let's just thank you for the background. But we're talking about Benghazi, and you say the next date. So the setup is this, right? The ambassador is in Benghazi. There's an attack on the embassy and the safe house. Your phones start lighting up. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So it was kind of it was like nighttime, in Europe. So my friend who was working the night shift, he saw it happening immediately, and then he started calling in the skiff. You can see basically it's all source intelligence, because he's in operations intelligence, and he saw it happening, and he started calling people and say, "Hey, are you seeing this? Are you seeing what's happening here? Are we going to do something?" And then he called all our subordinate units, so asking what are we going to do here, and all of them, didn't have an answer. Then he went out to the CCO, which is the commanding officer on duty, and the CCO said, "Don't call anybody in. We can't do anything." And
wait, this is at the very beginning of the attack. You already had the first stand down order. So this guy, the CCO, already knows in advance we're not doing anything as the attack just begun. Do I have that right?
Yes, and they were also, if I remember correctly, that specific person was a government. Basically, technically, they worked for Battle Creek, Michigan, and that officer was from there and in Europe at the time. And I think that was the officer that was.
Why is that important? Why is Battle Creek, Michigan important?
Battle Creek, Michigan, they basically, for Ramstein Air Force Base at that time, they had basically, if anybody were to get sick or injured or whatever, they would have the type of staff that could house the
airlift and such.
Yeah, exactly. And so when these officers came over, some of them were even government contractors still. And when you say government contractor, you're really working for the CIA, NSA, whatever. So anyway, this happens. My friend, of course, is completely devastated by this. My other friends too, who I have imagery analysts that are my friends, and then also people who are in counterintelligence for AFRICOM and other stuff. They knew it was coming over a week in advance. Counterintelligence knew, over a week in advance. They had indications and warnings that they were going to attack, and so even our imagery analysts, they were very upset. One of them was a very good friend of mine. And first time I ever had Johnny Walker, he comes over and brings Johnny Walker, and we start talking. And basically, he said, he gets really upset and he punches the wall. And then he tells me that they were told not to follow the people who attacked and, not to do anything. And it's like, why would you not follow the people who attacked you? Why would you
So
not?
hang on. So a week in advance, this attack is known about it. Our government allows the attack to happen. You're sitting there and go, holy cow, what's happening? This looks like an attack. You go to your CEO who says, yeah, don't do it. We're not doing anything here. So they're allowed. That's a plan, Nick. That's a freaking plan. Okay, so now what happens after that?
So this is all going on at our unit. We had just taken over AFRICOM, basically command and control of that. So it's kind of new to us. Then in America, over in Florida at Central Command, we had another exercise going on called Internal Look 12. And that was a fully staffed CENTCOM in the Air and Space Operations Center. And so they're fully staffed, and this is not their normal time to be staffed. And they're like, oh, look, something's happening. Let's go over and let's go ahead and help them and save them. And then they got a call from the State Department and said, no, we've got that. The State Department's got it. Don't do anything. And then from there, they couldn't do anything. They just watched it all happen.
Real quick, who was in charge of the State Department at that point in time?
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Oh, yes, of course she was in charge. And State Department says, we got this, even though their embassy, their ambassador is under attack. Do I have that right?
That's correct. And then a lot of people don't know this, but at the same time, the Egyptian embassy, the Marines there were told to put their weapons away and let the Egyptians take over that embassy at the same time. Hillary had went to visit him 2 weeks prior to that general that basically took over Egypt. And then he was later assassinated on the stand when he was having his his treason trial. He even said right before he left, I got stuff that I got all these elite people. And then he went, and then during recess,
this is a U.S. general that was ordered. Oh, no. I'm missing this. I didn't know anything about this Egyptian thing. We gave over an embassy, a U.S. embassy, to the Egyptians. So yes, here you go.
Yeah, to an Egyptian general that was Hillary's guy.
And he takes over our embassy for what purpose?
Well, there's a lot more to it, but
feel free to speculate. You're not on the stand.
I think that the attacks were all planned in Egypt, and they were the ones that helped orchestrate all of it. Of course, there was the Iranians were involved, according to Ken Timmerman and some other people.
So we had so the attackers, what I'm hearing you say, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, the attack was organized and arranged from Egypt with Egyptians, with Libyans, with Iranians. These are essentially mercenaries from North Africa. Do I have that right?
Yes. And so we allegedly, our NSA knew right when the Iranians arrived, and they were monitoring them. And then they did some diversionary stuff right before. But essentially, they thought Soleimani was behind it ultimately, and which is why probably Soleimani ended up being blown to bits. Yeah, I got yes. And so with all of the stuff that was happening, the main takeaway from it is that when I saw this happen, we were told not to rescue them and then not to follow the people who attacked. I was watching, the drones were overhead. I could see when I came into work that, the attack was still underway. There was smoldering buildings and the smoldering building and they were circling it for hours and such. And then that same, within a day or two, that same classified feed was on the news. So I was like, man, something really off is happening here. Really, really off. Why would the news already have our classified drone feed? And then of course, I figure if they kill them publicly, they will kill me most certainly if I say anything. So I stayed quiet and I waited until I got out of the military. My next base, I didn't even really talk to anybody because I was afraid if I drank alcohol or something, I would tell them about what happened and I'd get killed. Yeah. So I waited till I got out. I got out of the military I'm working a regular job. I'm working at Angie's List. And then on all the screens everywhere, there's screens everywhere. And it's very competitive sales I was in. But then I start seeing Hillary appear everywhere. This lady's running for president against President Trump. I'm like, oh my God, if she wins, I'm a dead man. I am a dead man. And because I'm a loose end. I'm one of 15 people that know the full picture. So I would be murdered for sure. But I
I
already
love you,
supported
man.
Thank you. I honestly, I didn't think I'd make it this far. I thought I'd be killed by now, but I think.
Well, God is protecting you. His divine hand brings you to this moment in time, to this day. And okay, so the fallout of this, obviously, we lost really brave souls who disobeyed orders, ran in there. One of the dads was Mr. Kelly. I saw his. Sorry, it's Charles Woods. I apologize. The dad of one of the guys that effectively sacrificed his life in vain because this was a plan based on what it is you're saying. And then you provided some other information that I find fascinating as it relates, because it's all connected, right? Bin Laden, everything in the Middle East is connected. And you've got something that says all roads lead to Brennan. It seems to me that maybe they all lead to Brennan, but Brennan leads to Hillary. Explain that to me, because I see some names here that pop up over and over again. Bin Laden, obviously, Leon Panetta, Bill Richardson, governor of New Mexico, pops up all over the place in continuity of government. Who else is involved, and why do all the roads lead there?
Bill Richardson was the person that helped set up the he helped set up the Google server where the deep state would use messages drafts and not send the messages. He's the person that went to, I even have the email, like the audio of telling him to focus on North Korea whenever Allen recorded, Congressman Kurt Weldon and then Biden's chief of staff.
Wow.
It's all connected. It starts out going back all the way, obviously the Bush.
Yeah, but please tell us how this works. Where does it lead and how does it get there?
Real quick,
as succinctly as you can. Yes.
Okay. So, since its inception, the CIA was run by Prescott Bush. He ran it from the shadows. Right. The guy who was really Dulles was actually his friend. He ran the CIA from the shadows the entire time until he handed it over to his son, Baby Bush. The Bush family was part of the JFK assassination. That's a whole nother sidebar.
Hang on, dude. You're saying Dulles' son was Bush? What?
No, I'm saying that Allen Dulles was very good friends with Prescott Bush.
Oh, sorry. Prescott Bush was just the father to George Bush. I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Prescott Bush is the same person that gave us false intel that the silos in Cuba were already ready to launch. That was him, Prescott Bush, that did that. Yeah. And so that same family has ran the CIA the whole time, and they're really in charge. All right. So, with John Brennan, he's a part of the Safari Club. So back whenever Carter was in office, something was formed called the Safari Club. And basically the CIA, their excuse was that they're afraid that Carter will get rid of the CIA and defund them. So what do? So Bush Sr. personally goes to Iran, Saudi Arabia, and some other for the other country, Qatar, and asked for the money. He asked for the money to be put in a big fund so that they could continue the CIA, shadow CIA in parallel at the same time. And that's where all of this starts. That's how
two CIAs on balance sheet and off balance sheet. And some of the documents you demonstrate show that the CIA intentionally went into the drug business because that's how they were funding the off balance sheet CIA. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. The CIA has been doing this for a long time. Of course, everybody kind of knows that now with Chip Tatum and that crew, the operating group that would do that. It all ties back to Hillary. Okay, so with the Black Book, when she was a part of the Watergate investigation, if you look it up, it'll say she wasn't, but she was because she was part of the congressional group that was investigating. It's a lie. It's a lie. Yeah. So what she did was she grabbed the Black Book that they were actually after, which had the blackmail for pedophilia. All the
Epstein list, effectively.
Yes. So she got that in her custody and then just lifted it and left. And that's why she got reprimanded after that. And then people really gave her a hard time because she stole that. And then that's how Bill Clinton was selected to run the CIA cocaine operation. Okay. Yeah. And get this. So James Woolsey, he became CIA director during the time when Clinton was in office. And the reason he became the director is because he caught them trafficking drugs and people.
So they co-opted them.
Yes, James Woolsey caught them, and he's like, man, he's part of the club, though. He's part of the Yale guys, right? And he was like, man, these guys are out of control. We got to stop these guys. So James Woolsey becomes the director of the CIA, and he tries to keep them under control, but they're just out of control. And then after that, time passes, 9/11 happens. It was a
Well,
complete
hang on.
setup.
Before 9/11, I also saw something in your materials. There was something like 25,000 people that had a problem with the CIA off balance sheet work just disappeared. Right? Wasn't there an enemies list, and they all effectively get knocked out? I mean, it's not a small number. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Phoenix program, I'm sure that they got some of the money. Yeah, just imagine it though, because imagine having more money than you could ever need for any
Well, that's the
operation.
point, right?
Forever.
If you can print money, and that was what Elon Musk was talking about, what could you not buy? And the answer is nothing. You can buy anything and everything. So you have the ability to print the money, you have the ability to make the money, you have the ability to do business with the gangsters, the drug runners, the traffickers, those who are expert at escaping detection. Right now, you got the judges on your side to make sure everything's okay. You got the prosecutors on your side. In other words, these guys were free reign. There was nobody stopping them, and they killed 25,000 people that might be a problem for them. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even now, I mean, look at Michael Hastings. He was killed by Brennan. You have, he was a reporter. He was about to break a story on Brennan, and that's when he got killed. So Brennan, going all the way back to 9/11, Brennan's a part of the Safari Club, right? So he's dual CIA. He works for both, and basically Bush.
Okay, he works for Bush, and the Safari Club is the club that we're not a part of, right? The controllers, right?
Yeah, and so this guy, he gets put over in the Saudi Arabia station chief or station for a long time, right? He actually gets an office inside one of the UAE areas, and he gets a little desk in there. He goes and talks to everybody, and they assign him a desk and stuff. That's how often he would go in there with these guys and talk with them. And of course, he's retarded because they were recording him the whole time. And that's how Allen got some of those recordings and documents that he's retarded. I mean, he's probably the worst spy ever. So he ended up giving the passports to the people that were quote unquote hijackers that came into the United States, but they weren't just passports. So if Ahmadinejad, the guy who's the leader of Iran, he's an adversary. If he tried to come to America, he'd have to get a special exception that's basically for leaders, and it's like, it benefits society.
It's a diplomatic pass. Yeah.
And that's what he got for them. They were already on the terrorist watch list, and they were removed and then given those special passports to get over here. So Brennan did that. And not to mention, Brennan personally took bin Laden from Tora Bora over to Iran for safekeeping. It was Brennan.
Like, come on here, pal. Let's walk over this way.
Yeah. It was complete setup. So John Brennan, obviously is a part of the whole plan. But bin Laden was in Iran the whole time under house arrest. And that was the conditions where he could stay alive, as if he did house arrest. And that's how my friend Alan eventually found him, is because he's on house arrest. But the one thing that they allow you to do when, if you're a criminal or whatever, is to go falcon hunting if you're prestigious, because instead of going to smoke cigars and drink some cognac, they'll go falcon hunting. Even if they're complete enemies, we're talking like they would kill each other if they saw each other normally. When falcon hunting happens, they put everything aside and everybody comes and does falcon hunting and nobody fights. That's the kind of thing it is. All right. And that's where the terrorists ask for money. And my friend Alan, he's a falcon trainer. He's autistic. And and he has Asperger's. So high functioning autism, real quick, people will have that oftentimes are geniuses.
Savants.
Savants. Yeah. And that's what Alan is. And so, and brave too. So he's over there. He's an absolute foremost expert in ornithology, which is study of birds, and in raptors in particular. He is the best trainer in the world. That's why they asked him to come out there. But it's the funniest thing. He converts to Sikh, and the Sikh religion was created to fight off the Muslim invasion. Actually, and they're known for being jolly, as they would cut off their heads and whatever else. So anyway, Alan is over there in the middle of all this. He's recording everything, which is the bravest thing I've ever heard in my life. This guy is over there for 20 years, and at any moment they could have tortured him to death, and he recorded all this. And so Alan takes all this back to the United States, right? He has it here, and he's just waiting for the right time to deliver all this information. And then I talk to these generals, General Valley and General McInerney, who I was
Yes.
working with on some stuff, and they connected to me to other witnesses, and then eventually they're like, see if you can find more people that you worked with, see if you can find more. All right, and I did, and I found Alan, and Alan has this huge database, and also he has all these files, right? And so he tells me about it, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this completes the puzzle. It all makes sense now, because whenever the attacks happened, I kept saying, why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
Tell us.
Why?
What's it about? Destroying America from within and from without?
Yeah, about all of the above. And it turns out that he found bin Laden, and he contacted the government. He went to Hillary's State Department. He did it the honest way. He's just kind of naive, honestly. But he went there with his lawyer and said, hey, I wanted to submit a tip for rewards for justice and get the $50 million. And no big deal. I want my money. I'm going to give you the tip. Go get him.
Yeah.
And they ignored him. He's like, what? Okay.
Yes.
And so then he goes to his friend Bill Richardson, who was in prep school with him. And by the way,
Bill Richardson, the governor of New Mexico.
Yes, and so is Robert Kennedy, by the way, Robert Kennedy Jr., who also is a falcon hunter.
Oh,
wink, wink.
Wow.
Was also went to the same school. So Alan goes to him and he says, hey, look, Bill, I found bin Laden. And he's like, oh, okay. And then they put together a coalition and a plan to go get him. And then Bill calls the CIA and they said, no, they said we can't go get him. And but that's a whole nother story. So in this whole process, Alan goes to everybody he's supposed to. And eventually the CIA is like, if you go there and you get him, we will tell Iran about you being in the country. They'll find you and torture you to death. That's what they said to him. He recorded it too.
To your friend Alan.
Yeah, he recorded all this. They're freaking idiots, all of them. And so Alan records all of this, even like the directors, like all the CIA, everybody. He records everybody. But
doesn't this make sense? I mean, look, if you already know that there isn't going to be a consequence, what do they care about getting caught? Who's going to do anything about it, right? That shows you the level of confidence and hubris that they enjoyed.
Yeah, just complete.
So then somebody. Right? There's too much word getting out. Holy crap, this bin Laden guy, everybody knows where he is now. We better do something about it. Is that what happens?
Yes. Ultimately, that's what happens, because Alan is like, all right, I've had enough of you guys. You aren't going to do the right thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a DVD, put all of the digitized evidence on the DVDs, and then send those to Iran, send that to Saudi Arabia, send it to the UAE, and send it to the United States. And all the leaders got these packages saying, basically, you're screwed. Here's the evidence. I've got the audio recordings of you. I've got the documents. What are you going to do? And Alan, quite frankly, he said to them, he said, he's like, I know you got bin Laden. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is a very difficult situation. And they actually admitted to it. And they admitted to it. That's how hard, like, he does not give up. He's like a bulldog. And
God, I
they're
love
eventually
him.
like, yeah, I guess you're right, man. What do you think we should do? And he's like, and he went to his lawyer. He's like, hey, they actually are asking for advice, but I can't give it because of Logan Act or whatever. So he's like, all right. So he had his lawyer draw it all up right properly. And he said, these are 6 scenario options where I think in this scenario that would work out best for you. And then he obviously said, I don't represent the United States government and so on.
Smart.
Iran actually did his plan.
My
and so did
Lord.
And so did the State Department. So that, like, just to make it even, though, Alan's one of those people, he likes rounded things. So when he had 5 ideas and plans to make us not go to war and then get bin Laden, one of the plans he threw in at the end was the trophy kill. He's like, if that doesn't work for him, this option. And he just threw it in there, like the trophy kill option. And then he later calls them after in regret saying, don't do that option. And they did it anyway.
And they did it anyway. But so let me just go back for a second here, because a lot of this leads to the same conclusion that we had in the monologue, right? Which is, this is all just a game, right? This is an illusion of choice. This is a fabrication. And the question is, to what end? And bin Laden becomes a very easy fall guy, right? Somehow, bin Laden gets blamed for the Twin Towers and the attacks on 9/11. How does that happen? Because to my knowledge, he had nothing to do with it. But secondarily to that, he also gets blamed for the attacks, the Operation Desert Storm in Iraq. So he's just the all-around fall guy. and then they figure, well, we'll appease the masses, the serfs, with a trophy kill. Everything will be fine, right? Do I have that right?
Yep, and then of course re-election too. And Brennan's the guy that set it up. He's like, "Listen, I got a secret for you guys." And hey, and he set it all up. And get this. So it's actually Biden's attorney that physically goes there to make sure all the arrangements are done in Pakistan. And that's the recording that Alan gets, is when the Congressman Weldon, he talks to him first, and then Weldon says he's going to pick up Ettinger from the airport. That's his former chief of staff and his attorney, who's basically his bag man that goes around the world.
Got it.
Yeah. And so when he picks him up from the airport, he says to him, I just got back from Pakistan. Boy, he's setting up the trophy kill, and he's explaining, and then of course they're retarded and they always think no one's recording, and Alan's recording him, and then this guy it says like point blank that, yeah, we know bin Laden, we know where he's in Iran, we don't want to get him, you know.
He's chilling out, doing falconing. My dear, I mean, this is absurd. It's absolutely absurd, Nick. All right, we're going to run out of time because I got to tell you, this could go on for hours. I want it to go on for hours. I hope, by the way, I'll let you finish your conclusory statement before John comes back with his own questions. I hope that you will offer us the opportunity to have Alan and other people in your sphere come and let's do a roundtable, because there's so much here to understand, and you're doing a really good job of helping me understand what the apparatus looks like. So with that said, in the next 3 minutes or so before John comes back, guide us to the end, or where we are today.
Ultimately, Benghazi happened because when they went to go kill bin Laden, they killed his son. And when they killed his son, bin Laden actually got pulled out at the last second by Russia and Iran, put him back over there. I don't know if he's still alive now, but they got caught with their pants down. And then they're like, all right. And their culture is very tribal. And so bin Laden, they have to offer blood money or blood. And he chose blood, and that would be SEAL Team 6. So they messed that one up too, because
our government sacrificed SEAL Team 6 because they killed bin Laden's son.
Yes, and bin Laden wanted to get even, and they had to, because what are they going to say to the American people? Well, we didn't get bin Laden. They'll be like, okay, what happened? How did this have happened?
Well, so you also have the general saying pictures of bin Laden, right? Body put out to sea, a non-Islamic burial.
Yeah,
they wrap him in an American flag and dump him overboard. Is that how that works?
Okay, totally a Muslim burial.
Yeah, so this is what I'm trying to say, is what we're seeing is, this us versus them mentality is a joke, because all these guys are talking, the Persians and the Pakis and probably the Saudis, Afghanis, our government, other governments, and they're all just having a chat. Hey, should we have a trophy kill or not? What do you think? A barbecue on Sunday? I mean, do I have this right?
Yeah, the barbecues to celebrate their re-election because they got bin Laden. But it gets crazier than that. So I know you only got a minute here.
That's right. Do it.
David Kendall, the guy who did Whitewater, her attorney Hillary's during Whitewater, and also during the bleach pit scandal.
Yeah.
I have documents proving he was trying to solicit stolen money from Gaddafi. It was $1.2 billion in 2006 in $100 bills. There were two 40-foot cargo containers in Ghana, and that's where he was hiding his money from the UN. And so basically, Hillary had set up for him to solicit the money to be laundered through an energy company. And it turns out the guy who owned the energy company was good friends with Jim Woolsey, and was like, don't you hate these people? Why are they trying to launder money through my company? And he's like, oh, okay. And then they set him up. And that's why they tried to kill the Turkish leader. And then they tried to blame that on, General Flynn. And he had nothing to do with it. It is because he was setting up the military aircraft from Turkey to pick up the money and then do the sting operation to catch Hillary and her attorney. So that's why they tried to kill him, and it had nothing to do with General Flynn, is because he tried to set up the Clintons.
Wow. This is some fantastic information, Nick. Have you written a book yet?
Actually, yeah, I just haven't had enough time, but I basically as much as I could cover. It's called Extortion 17's Why. It's on Amazon now.
That's what I was hoping. Good. We'll make sure and promote that because this is so much fun to understand. And I'm going to buy a bunch of copies of that, send them out to everywhere. John, welcome back. I am sure you've got a pallet full of questions.
When I hear Ghana and money laundering, I think Ghana, isn't that where Karen Bass just spent a little extra time while the city of LA was burning?
Oh, you're right. Yes, it was a celebration of some princess or something. Yes.
Yeah, she was there trying to supposedly help establish a consulate or something in Los Angeles so we could have an underground railroad from Ghana directly to LA.
Oh, well, that's handy. Well, they got a lot of gold.
Oh my gosh.
Did
that
I just
blew my mind? Yeah.
Did I just red pill you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that you're right. It's connected.
Well, buckle up, Dorothy.
Yeah.
Here's another fun little timeline for you. You had Obama take down Osama bin Laden allegedly. That was Sunday and Monday, May 1st, April 30th of 2011, right?
Yeah, it's around the, yeah.
The day before that, Saturday, guess what happened? That was the day that Obama had the White House press correspondence dinner where he mocked Donald Trump in front of all the people, and they all laughed, and they basically made Batman that night. Remember that?
Yes.
Wow.
Guess what happened? So that's a distraction to the people. The day before that, guess what happened? That was William and Kate wedding. So everybody's distracted in the world. The day before that, 300 something people I think were killed in tornadoes in a massive, unbelievable outbreak of tornadoes across the Southeast, starting out in Texas.
Yeah, there's no weather modification.
The day before that,
conspiracy theory.
The day before that, that was the day that Obama released that fake birth certificate.
Well done, John. Holy smokes. What?
With layers. Let me tell you, I've got multiple Adobe certifications. There was no scanning software in 2011 that would allow you to have layers. And guess which law firm was behind obtaining that wonderful document?
Yeah, who was it?
Perkins Coie.
Oh,
yeah. What? Yeah. That's the funny part about this. When I say funny, absurd funny, because they don't care, right? Yeah. What are you going to do about it? They own everybody.
You can go to the Obama White House archive right now and download the short form document, which, by the way, is black and white, which already invalidates it. You can't get if you try to take any of these documents that they gave you without a seal or either black and white, it's going to say it's modified because it is modified from the original, and it is unusable to even get cable or power service here in the United States, unless, of course, you don't have a birth certificate, in which case you can do whatever you want. But the beautiful thing about this, and you should go to the Obama White House right now, the archive, and download the short form document, print it out. And when you go to a website and you print something and it has a URL address, why does Obama's short form birth certificate come from a bulletin board on Snopes?
Yeah. Snopes, go figure. Who are those
guys? It has a Snopes URL at the bottom of the official document.
I wonder if
we all been hoodwinked, folks.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, on such a grand scale that people can't believe it, except for this. We've been at this now for 5 years, exposing anything and everything collectively, right? We've all been fighting like hell. And Nick, God love you, man, for the risks that you've taken. And your friend Alan, I'd love to chat with him someday. But in all of our own little ways, just the mention here and there at the dinner table or somebody you meet, it's made a difference. People's minds are now open to this. They're now understanding that everything we think we know is freaking wrong, right? So it's coming together, and we just need to do a lot more of this. So before we run out of time, no, we got a little bit more. Go ahead, John. We keep at it.
Sorry, my questions, if I have questions, you've probably covered this, but the purpose for Benghazi, generally, I assume that these events if they are orchestrated, it's done to drive funding or distraction. But it doesn't look like
sick. I think this is a freak form of entertainment for them, but okay, let's go.
But what do you think the primary purpose was of Benghazi?
They wanted everybody to die in there, and if those guys didn't go back, everybody would have died. There's no reinforcements. We already had our guys, our team in Djibouti had already taken off, and they were on their way. Their pararescue. They would have been just dropped in and killed everybody and created a perimeter. And quite frankly, they're so good that they would have made short work of them. And so we had that. We had Aviano was also running an exercise at the same time, and they couldn't pull away from it, where they could have had their fighter jets just fly over the top of the, just fly over, and they would have
Sonic
ran.
booms.
Yeah,
Blam.
that's all it would have taken. And so I often, that's why I'm here. I ask the question over and over again, why would you do that? And for what? To sacrifice to Moloch and Baal? No, there's something else.
Well,
and
there's that too.
I truly believe that since Hillary was selling the Stinger missiles through there, she took over the program from Mark Turry and was personally selling them. I think that it was a Stinger missile that she sold on purpose because she screwed up the whole bin Laden deal. She had to take care of it and make it even. She was the person that had to do it because she's the one that caused the problem. So like, okay, Hillary, you fix this. And then she's like, okay. And then she took over the covert weapons program, took the UAE missiles, sent them through Benghazi. That's why they had everybody die, because they're the only people that knew that. Because look, when you go look at Extortion 17, it was shot down, and the missile hit the engine block, and they didn't charge it right. You're supposed to twist it first or something to arm it, and then put it in, and then shoot it. They didn't do that. So when it hit the engine block, it got stuck, and then they just dropped out of the sky. There's a firefight that ensued. There's Overwatch on the top. They were told not to engage and save them as well. As a female Air Force officer talks about that. But the list goes on and on. But ultimately, that. But
hang on.
Missile got traced back.
That's what I wanted to say, is that Stinger missile gets tracked back to Benghazi. So Hillary arranges the weaponry to take out SEAL Team 6 because they killed bin Laden's kid. Do I have that right?
Yeah. It was a big mess up, and she had to make it even to keep him quiet. And, but of course, Iran wanted money. They got the pallets of money. And also, by the way, one of the officers I worked with actually was one of the pilots that took one of the pallets over there. On a
military transport, on a military aircraft.
He's one of those guys that was a Air Force Academy graduate, and he would disappear sometimes and then come back in a week or something, kind of thing, pilot.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. What else, John, before we finish?
How do we repair all this?
The truth.
Hey, I have the answer. Check this out. You know how the feds took all Allen's stuff, right? And they've been basically trying to just hide it. Guess what? The 9/11 trials just started in Cuba 17 years later. They just started them. And so we got Kash Patel. He's very honest. He is going to go buy the book. So when I or someone finally gets to talk to him and say, go get Allen's stuff, because there's exculpatory evidence, even though we don't like terrorists, there's exculpatory evidence for those terrorists. And by law, you are required to provide it to them. And he will.
That's right.
And when he takes that over there, hands it to them, they're going to say, okay, yeah, you guys might be guilty of a little bit, you already time served, see ya. And then it's a tribunal. They don't care. As soon as they see these people, they'll go look into it. And as soon as they see, they'll have full access to all this. And so, and if we can get those trials with this evidence from Allen inserted into those trials, we will have military tribunals. And when these people get their tribunal, there's no appeals process. It's like, hey, execution tomorrow at noon. Next.
Nick, I'm going to help you with that. I will absolutely help you with that. I know how to get that done.
Please, sir.
So let's do that. And in the meantime, what we have to do is just this. When you ask the question, how do we solve it? The truth cures. At the end of the day, the truth is our best weapon, and the only way to make it better is for more people to know. And that's exactly what we're doing at Cloud Heaven. The reason why we're having this very interview. We'll make sure it gets out, and we need a lot of help from you people that are watching. Send it everywhere, because that is the means by which we rectify this. So we're going to do that. And also, I want to make sure that we get your book put up on the website. We actually have an online store now at Liberty Club, which is the other Clout Hub sister company, or sister platform, I should say. So I really want to help you with this, Nick. And I know there's a lot of other people out there. Bring your whistleblowers, brothers and sisters. Let's put it together and we demand action. I like your idea about the military tribunals. We're going to make that happen one way or another. Like Alan did, you put it out there and what happened? They had to do something. That's how we solve this.
Yep.
I agree.
Good. Last thoughts, Alan, last thoughts, Nick, before we have to go.
I appreciate you having me on here, Mr. Callender. And I also appreciate John and John Davison, Broken Truth TV over there. I really appreciate it because look, this could be the moment where everything pivots from allowing me to come on your platform. And I really appreciate it.
No, it's really our honor, and we're going to help you any way and every way we can, because this is something that if it is not done, then we're all dead anyway, right? Because they will just continue on, and the attack is on humanity. They just needed to get our government and our people out of the way. So they went after us first. So good. Brother, what an honor it is to speak with you today. John, as always, you're my hero, brother. You keep me laughing, and I very much appreciate that because these are dark times.
Yes, they are.
So gentlemen, you are God's own warriors, and I very much appreciate you. God bless you. And folks, please help us spread the word because that's how we win this.